There's a lot packed into this text. Demon possession is one, which, I don't know, we don't really talk about that very much, right? We have a large crowd, which we kind of know something about. If you go to a concert, you go to a Rider game, there's a large crowd. Ooh-wee, it's going to be one of them days. There's chaos, microphones going crazy, and there's healing. But there's something that permeates this text this morning that we are going to dive into and focus on that supersedes all of it. Faith. I'm not even going to wait to do a dramatic pause. Faith. Faith is something that's key to this text, that permeates this text, and so we're going to dive into it today. And so I have a question. Have you ever noticed how struggles in life can actually bring faith into view? Struggles in life that can bring faith into view. When everything's going well, our faith can run on autopilot, and we can be like, life's pretty darn good. Church and prayer become just a routine. Because things are going well, we don't even notice that it's becoming routine. We just do it. We simply just do what we normally do every day. But when things start to fall apart, faith starts to come into view a little bit more. It's like a shining flashlight into a dark room. Trials can actually illuminate our faith. Struggles can actually illuminate faith. It can bring it into view. And normally this experience is really painful, tragic, but it can also be positive. I'm going to use my children as examples because they're not old enough to be my examples, but I don't want to use real names, so I'm going to use my children's names. So sorry, my children, when you're old enough to understand what I've done, get over it. Toby. So Toby, who had stopped going to church long ago, started coming again. Why? Why would he do that? Well, his daughter actually left home without even telling him where she's going and giving an address. There's no way he can contact her. She just left. And so he starts coming to church. He has nowhere else to turn. Lucy's prayer life has increased dramatically. Why? Because the doctor actually just found a spot on her lung and said, it's not looking good. And so she has nowhere else to go. Trials like a flashlight illuminate faith, and sometimes it's a good thing. It can be a really good thing. We see faith get revived because there's nowhere else to turn. But there's other times, however, when we see a darker picture. Instead of faith getting stronger, it gets weaker. When trials come and the batteries and the flashlight seem to just be going out and dying, the darkness gets darker. And then we find faith huddled in a corner, shrinking and dying, just not even wanting to move. The light goes out. Yes, many people come back to church during a family dispute, but just as many have walked further away. Yes, illness has led some to pick up their Bibles and read it, but it's led others to look elsewhere. You see, no matter what, trials reveal faith. The experience is not always positive. Instead of a strong and vibrant return to Jesus, we see a deeper questioning of God and anger, a growing reluctance to believe in anything at all. Faith actually just wavers. And it's good to be honest. It's good to come face to face with it. And the prayers become questions filled with anger and bitterness, and hope becomes just a dreamlike fantasy from a Netflix show, which seems so distant from reality that can't even be reached. And so today we have Mark, the Gospel of Mark, and he helps us to see and name these situations. He's not saying run from them, not to pretend everything's fine. He's saying know it, name it, and face it. He calls us to stop pretending that faith is always going to get stronger in all situations and recognize that sometimes it just gets weaker and sometimes it's dying. He's saying, own up to it and just know it exists. You see, Mark wants us to come face to face with this ugly reality so that we can come face to face with God's almighty grace, with a beautiful Savior, face to face to Jesus. And so the beauty of this gospel text today, and I'm not even going to wait till the end to give it to you, is how it reveals Jesus as the one and only one who comes not only for the strong in faith, but also for those who are weak and walking away. Hear that. Jesus doesn't just come for those of you who got yourself put together. He comes for those who are sprinting to the other side. And he holds on. And so I want us to walk through this text today. Consider it through the eyes of the Father who brought his demon-possessed child. I would just read it again, but we're not just going to read it again. I'm hoping you were actually listening when it was read the first time. If not, that's your problem to deal with on another day. I'm not kidding. Consider the Father. His son is born, and he's excited. He's got his firstborn child. Anybody who's had a child and it's firstborn, whether it's a boy or a girl, you're just like, it's the most exciting thing you could possibly have in your life. And guess what? It's awesome. He's excited. He's looking forward to the future. And then all of a sudden, as he's starting to get into childhood, there's a demon possession that takes place, and this kid has seizures all the time, foams at the most, just keeps beating his head against the ground because he's in seizures. He gets stiff as a board, and nothing you can do can stop it. Nothing you do fixes it. And so your whole fatherhood time, you're trying to fix your child. You go see this person or that person. You get some remedy here, remedy there, maybe a little drink of something here and something over there, and you're trying your darndest to get this kid healthy because you love this child more than yourself. And so as a father, you are pushing and trying and trying and trying, and nothing seems to work. And this father had tried everything. And then he gets to the point like, maybe it's a waste of my time. He starts to feel like I should give up. Forget it. He's not getting better. Maybe I just have to deal with my child being this way for the rest of his life. And so you start to see faith come into view. But it's a faith that starts to wane. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of all your neighbors and stuff going, there's something wrong. Like in the Jewish culture, if you had a child that had any issues, they're like, sinners, problem people, stay away from them. But maybe you had one neighbor who's been with you this whole time, trying to get you to just keep going. And then all of a sudden they knock on the door. And so they knock on the door and say, hey, guess what? There's this Jesus guy. There's this guy named Jesus. He's been doing miracles. He's been casting out demons. There's this really crazy dude that they cast a demon out, and he's totally normal. You should go find Jesus. He might be able to do it. All of a sudden, this father has this little revived hope. Faith comes into view. He's got this revived faith, this hope that maybe there's a chance my child can actually have a real life. Because guess what? He's not a child anymore. He is now between the age of 12 to 20. He is in that adult stage. He didn't even get to have a bar mitzvah because heaven forbid we try to have one, and he ends up just flopping around on the ground the whole time when we're trying to do a good thing. And so he has this little revived hope. And so the neighbor's like, I'll walk with you. He's just over there. It's maybe a day's trip. And we're just going to go, and we're going to find this Jesus, and he's going to take care of everything because I've heard stories. And you're like, yeah, as the father, you're like, yeah, I've heard those stories too. And so you start walking, and you take your son. And yeah, there's probably some episodes along the way, but you take that son with you because you love him. And then all of a sudden, he's like, oh, by the way, he's also actually told his disciples to go out and do these things, and they're actually casting out demons. So no matter what, your child's going to be well. And so that faith is building up again, and it's excited, and it's like, man, my kid might actually be normal. And then he finds the crowd. There's a huge crowd. He finds them at a base of a mountain. And there's all these religious leaders with their garb and everything else, and they're standing there, and there's some disciples. But you're trying to get through this crowd of hundreds and hundreds of people. And you're weaving your way through to find Jesus, and he's not there. Because where Jesus actually went is he went up on a transfiguration. He had the transfiguration on the mountain. He took 3 disciples. He was gone. he was gone. So Jesus isn't even there, and everybody's kind of wrestling because Jesus left, and they don't know if he's coming back. It reminds us of Moses and Mount Sinai. They didn't know if he was coming back, but he did. And so Jesus is gone. But then the guy remembers, well, the disciples have been doing this too. And so he fights his way through. He fights through the scribes who have actually tried to help him in the past and give him all these rules and things to try, these rituals, and they didn't work. But he finds these disciples and says, hey, he's got a demon, I need help. And the disciples, in their proudness, say, no, don't worry, we got this. Jesus has given us this authority. And they do it, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so this father's standing here watching these people try, and it doesn't work. And so in the back of his mind, he's like, what a load of garbage. I walked all this way, and nothing works. This was my last-ditch effort. And in the meantime, Jesus is coming back down from the mountain of transfiguration when he was glorified in front of 3 disciples, where he talked with Moses, he talked with Elijah, and all of the glory of God shone in that place. He starts coming down and he sees chaos. The religious leaders are arguing, the disciples are arguing, people are getting restless, they don't know if Jesus is coming back or even if he's the real deal, and Jesus comes back into the midst of this chaos, and he cuts through the crowd and says, what is going on? And guess what? That Father is right by Jesus. And so now the Father is standing before Jesus face to face. And he's the one who speaks because he's had it. He's done. So consider this moment. When the Father stands before Jesus, at first, the Father's heart was filled with hope. You can remember a time when your heart was filled with hope. He brought his child to the disciples for healing, and they had cast out spirits before, and his son had a spirit, so obviously it should work, and it didn't. They couldn't do anything. So then his heart fills with frustration as the religious leaders sit there and argue about religious things rather than care about his son. While his son suffers, all they want to do is just say, well, who can cast out demons? How? When? Why? Which way? What's the proper method? That's all they care about. And he's getting madder and madder by the minute. And so by the time Jesus arrived, the Father is done. His heart is nearly empty of faith. And so Jesus comes and he's in the midst of it, and the Father spills what's going on. And so Jesus is just frustrated himself. Oh, you faithless generation. Oh, you people who don't get it. How long do I have to stay here so you can get it? How long do I have to hold on? But yet he does. And he says, bring that child to me. And so they bring the child before Jesus. And this spirit that's within this child, as if to demonstrate its own power, throws this child to the ground in a convulsion. And his son rolls at his feet, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus says, he doesn't even address it. He says, well, how long has this been happening? You see, Jesus is not just focused on this kid. He's like, how long has this been happening? And so the Father just spills his guts. Here's the life story from beginning to now. For years, his son has been tormented by the Spirit. Sometimes the Spirit will throw him into the water to drown him. Other times it throws him into a fire to burn him. Always the Spirit is seeking to kill him and destroy life. So what has happened, this demon, the spirit, has taken the joy of childhood and replaced it with suffering. The joy of fatherhood and replaced it with fear. And the power of faith, it made to seem just really stupid and foolish. And so the Father, in this moment with Jesus, face to face, reaches down into his empty heart and gives that one last final plea. He says, Jesus, if you are able, please have compassion on us and just help us. I can't take it. And then guess what happens? Suddenly Jesus isn't troubled by something like a demon or an evil spirit. He's troubled by something more than that. More than the child rolling on the ground. Jesus is troubled by a father who is letting go. He's letting go. Falling away from faith. And so before Jesus does anything for the Son, he actually speaks with some tough love to the Father. He's a little angry. If I can. If I can. Do you not know who I am? If I can. Everything is possible if you just have faith. What he wants to do, Jesus is saying, hey, I want you to become aware of your doubt. He's not saying it's terrible. He's not saying, I want you to know that you're stupid. He's saying, come face to face with your doubt. He wants the Father to hear it. So Jesus brings the Father face to face with his faith, which is dying, so that he can stand face to face with Jesus, who can save. So the Father replies from there, I do believe. Help my unbelief. That is a confession to Jesus from the Father. He's saying, I do, but I don't. I do and I don't, so help me because I can't take it. I do and I don't. It's been so long. The trial has been so hard. And so I'm telling you today, in this story, that Father is you and it is me. Our story so much reflects that of the Father. When struggles linger, when things go chaotic, when tragedy bites hard, the batteries in our flashlight begin to die. They go out, and the darkness gets bigger and bigger, and we just let go. We just let go. Those words of the Father are our words today. I do believe, but I don't. So help me. We believe, but it isn't that simple. It's something we've carried on as people for so long because we live in the West and life's been pretty perfect. We say we believe, but we really struggle. If we're honest, let's just be honest. We struggle. We have our doubts. We have our struggles. We have our feeling of, is this even worth it? Is it? Simultaneously, I am a saint and a sinner, a believer and a doubter. And it is in that space that we can become face to face with Jesus in the mess. Face to face. Dr. Chad Bird has a prayer I want to share with you. It reflects this empty plea, at the final plea of the Father that we have today. He says, Lord, I do believe, but help thou my unbelief. That is my table prayer, our bedside prayer, our office prayer, our going to the movies prayer, our 24/7 petition. Lord, I do believe, but I also don't believe. I am a cocktail of contradictions, double-hearted, forked-tongued, pulled heavenward, pulled hellward every step I take. I fear you, but I also fear failure. I trust you, but I also trust myself. I love you, but I also love the limelight. Lord, I am a saint and I am a sinner, your bride and the devil's whore. Lord, I believe. Help thou my unbelief. He can't say it any better. That is my prayer. And we so often let go. But the grace today, and I want you to hear this over and over, and I'll repeat it till the end. Jesus, he holds on. He holds on. That's the Jesus you worship. That's the Jesus you've come here to worship today. If you didn't, guess what? That's who he is. He's not a rules guy that says, figure it out or you're not worth it. He's the one who holds on to you. Full of grace, full of truth, full of patience, and full of love. And so here's the beauty of grace in the text. Jesus holds on to people who are letting go. And with those words, the Father believes, but he also doesn't. He tries, but he's given up trying. He holds on, but he also lets go, and he confesses, yeah, I do, but I don't. I do and I don't. And so with that, the Father brings all of our weakness, all of our stumbling, all of our doubting, all of our grumbling, all of our reservations, all of our running, and sets it at the feet of Jesus. And Jesus, when face to face with our ugliness. When face to face with our ugliness says, I'm going to bring you face to face with my bountiful and beautiful unending grace. Jesus is a Savior who has come to save. It's a bruised reed he will not break, a smoldering wick he will not snuff out, a weak faith he's never going to deny. He will never deny a weak faith. Jesus has come to die for all people. You who are strong in faith, and you who are weak in faith, and you who have no faith at all. He has come today. When Jesus died on the cross, he didn't die for the sin of unbelief, or he died for the sin of unbelief, so that when he rose from the dead, when he rose, he brings forgiveness and restoration to all, those who are strong, those who are weak, and those who have none. He didn't just come for the perfect. He came for those who are barely hanging on and have actually let go. The healing of the demon-possessed boy was an amazing miracle, powerful display of Jesus' power. But it wasn't the main beauty of this passage today. The main beauty is, and then what I want you to just soak in today, I don't care if you hear anything else, it's what it reveals about Jesus. No matter what, Jesus holds on to you even when you let go. Soak it in today. That's my final plea. Jesus holds on to you when you let go. So faith then is a relationship with the one who is strong enough to save. It's not how tightly you hold on to Jesus, but rather how tightly he's holding on to you. And Jesus says in John 10, it's a promise for you. No one, because he holds on to you tightly, no one will ever snatch you out of his hand, no matter how far you let go and no matter how many times you tell him to go away. So today you can be honest with your struggles in faith because Jesus has come with his all-powerful grace. So you can say, I believe and I don't. Because he is always, always, always holding on to you. Amen.